Tonight, you'll hear the chilling story of just how close Israel came to experiencing a total catastrophe of biblical proportions. And you'll hear the story of the miracle in the north, how the God of Israel sovereignly and supernaturally thwarted Hezbollah and stopped them dead in their tracks, even though they've been planning such an invasion for at least a decade. Good evening, and welcome to a very special episode of the Rosenberg Report. Now, recently, my TBN colleagues and I were invited to visit an IDF base in northern Israel, not far from the Lebanon border, to interview Israeli military officials who had an extraordinary story to tell and 18,000 pieces of evidence to back it up. I'm here on an IDF base, an Israeli Defense Forces base, in the north of Israel, not far from the border with Lebanon. And I got a briefing today on 18,000 pieces of military hardware, weapons, machine guns, missiles, rocket launchers, all kinds of stuff. You'll see it in this show tonight. What Israel captured from Hezbollah. This is stuff that was captured, not destroyed. Israel destroyed even more, but it captured a lot. And I'm going to show you interviews that I did with several Israeli military officials. And I talked to several others that couldn't go on camera, to give you a picture of just how much God protected Israel. We think of how horrible it was when Hamas slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, right, on October 7th, and captured, took hostage 251 others, and took them into those terror tunnels in Gaza. But I'm learning more and more, and I want to share with you tonight what God protected us from, which could have been far, far worse. Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, thank you so much for inviting us up here to see the massive amount of weapons that the IDF captured from these Shia villages, these Hezbollah strongholds. But let's start on October 6th or maybe the 7th of 2023. Hezbollah had a plan to invade northern Israel, to invade the Galilee. If they had launched simultaneously with Hamas, how bad do you think it would have been?
Well, we don't want to imagine that the results would have been very bad, but what we see here, what we are showing the world today and showing you today, is Hezbollah said it publicly, but we can see it with our own eyes. They have planned to the last detail, to the shoelaces of the terrorist who needs to infiltrate Israel, all the details for a mass attack invasion on Israel, bigger than what Hamas did on October 7th.
Bigger by what magnitude, do you think?
We know Hezbollah has a larger force than Hamas. The border is bigger, and we know this would have been a bigger attack. Our response could have been different in the northern front, but the attack would have been bigger. And we see two kinds of things we see here today. One is we see these pickup trucks. They're not a pickup truck you would use or a family in the States. It's a pickup truck. It has 24 barrels to launch rockets from it. So what this pickup truck does, it hides in a civilian house, comes out, fires 24 rockets, goes back in, vanished. Reloads, comes back out. You can't find it. Unless you have a pinpoint intelligence, which we've had in a few cases, you can't find it. And the second thing we found, which is a much bigger problem that we were able to thwart, and it's the reason why we risked our lives, risked our soldiers going into Lebanon, is to remove the Hezbollah strongholds, those launch pads for an invasion from our border. So international agreements say Hezbollah is not allowed south of Litani.
Right.
What they've done
Litani River, which is about, it's squiggles, but maybe 18 to 20 miles above the official border.
Nowhere near.
Okay.
What Hezbollah has done for almost 2 decades, and UNIFIL has not done anything to prevent it. They have embedded themselves deeply within that area, building bunkers, tunnels, amazing tunnels, also trying to infiltrate Israel, but also just defensive tunnels all across the border with Israel. And we're talking about a mile, sometimes 2 miles, but sometimes even less, from Israeli communities, Metula, Oshtula, just Israeli farmers on their land, and you see those rockets, those
these
missiles.
These are not narrow tunnels like in Gaza that I've been in. That some of these are pretty wide.
Let me tell you this, one of the tunnels, when we exploded it to destroy it, it was so big, the magnitude created an earthquake alert for the people in northern Israel. So we're talking about a vast system for them to attack Israel. And when we went into the tunnels, I got the chance to go in one of those villages. That's just a mile from the Israeli communities. You see it already. There's boxes with all the munition, still in bags, brand new, vests, helmets, socks, machine guns, missiles, and those pickup trucks to infiltrate, and even the equipment to breach the border. They have the frames with explosives in it to just place it on the border, blast it, and then infiltrate with those picket ropes so you can see.
Do you have a sense, can you estimate what percentage of the houses, schools, mosques, hospitals on that southern Lebanon border had weapons, communications gear, ammo, missiles? What percentage? I mean, is 1 in 5, 1 in 10?
Well, much more. And what we've seen, and we went to villages according to intelligence we had, but in those villages we went to, we called them terror villages. Every second house had some sort of terror infrastructure in it. I don't know how people would agree to live in that conditions. Hezbollah was deeply embedded, and we're talking about the first line of villages was completely, and you can go.
You mean almost every house?
Almost every house.
School, almost every hospital?
Basically every second house. You go to the villages now and you see, because when we found infrastructure, we'd either confiscate it or blow it up, and you see every second house, some villages, all the houses were used for terror purposes by Hezbollah, took over the first line of villages between Israel and Lebanon, and what we did right now is we eliminated them from that area. We pushed them back. We were able to eliminate that infrastructure and to confiscate those billions of dollars that Iran has invested in Hezbollah, putting those weapons on our border.
What percentage now of Hezbollah missiles and drones does the IDF estimate that it has destroyed at this point?
Well, I want to be careful with numbers, but there's some estimates saying 70-80% even of that stockpile. It still means they have a large amount.
Sure.
And they're still going to
Because they started with about 150,000,
and they're going to try and rearm themselves and regroup. And what we're doing right now is preventing them from that. We're preventing Iran from rearming Hezbollah because we know that's something they want to do. And we're preventing them from coming back to this area. Because if they did it in the past and they did not care about the international agreements and came to our borders, then we have to make sure that doesn't happen again, and we learn from our mistakes. And we can't allow I don't think any country in the world would allow this type of amounts and quality of weapons to be a mile from their border.
Yeah,
sometimes a few hundred feet from a border. I don't think any country in the world that respects this stuff would let this happen, and we have to make sure this threat does not return to our border.
What was Hezbollah's plan? What did they wish they had accomplished?
So Hezbollah posted its plan many years ago to capture the Galilee. Out in the field, in the villages, we actually found various amount of ammunition to allow Hezbollah to capture simultaneously many villages as possible, roadblocks, in order to hold posts inside of Israel, prevent the Israeli army from invading Lebanon and protecting the towns, and actually getting to the launch areas that are deeper inside of Lebanon. And that was the main goal of the invasion plan. The invasion plan was also one of its strongest tools. Knowing, you see the amount of ammunition we have here, it was one of its strongest tools that it had. And like I said, their main goal was to capture as many villages as possible, kidnap soldiers and civilians in order to have a strong card, and to prevent the Israeli army from invading Lebanon and stopping missile launching from the depth of Lebanon, and to protect Iran. That's on the bigger level, is to protect Iran.
So just to be clear, the Hezbollah plan was to invade northern Israel, to capture the whole Galilee region, and basically do to northern Israel what Hamas ended up doing in southern Israel in the Gaza envelope, but Hezbollah didn't do it. In other words, that was the plan, and what you guys, but they didn't actually invade on the 7th of October, or the 8th of October, the 9th of October. It appears that Hamas went first and Hezbollah wasn't ready. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, and why didn't they go faster?
So why they didn't go faster? We'll have to ask Nasrallah, but that is
in hell.
Exactly in hell. So that's a fair question, because what we found inside the villages or in the forest.
Once you guys
when we decided to
exactly villages that were filled with weapons
on a counterattack to stop the launching on the Israeli cities up down to Tel Aviv and even south of Tel Aviv, what we found was a ready plan. We found bunkers, we found tunnels, we found homes, and all with the same aim. You also see the ammunition. You know, I'm a career officer, so you have ammunition that's made for different things. When you want to be, an assault soldier, when you want to attack, so you have certain kind of ammunition. When you're going to launch and a missile from far. So you have a different kind of ammunition. Here we found mounts of ammunition that are supposed to be carried on backs, assault rifles, medic care, anti-tank missiles, stretchers. It was very clear.
Everything you would expect for a ground invasion.
Exactly.
And a large one.
And a large one. And it's true that Hamas might have done it first, but without a doubt, Hezbollah had a much larger plan and a stronger one. You can see the amount of ammunition you see here, the variety of ammunition. It's something that even we, which we knew about the plan and we knew about the intelligence, were surprised. The amount of bunkers, the amount of tunnels that were close to the border, the role that the villages close to the border take part in this invasion, even amazed us.
One senior IDF officer told me that the estimate is that Hezbollah had 3 times the amount of weapons and ammunition and supplies ready to go for this invasion than Israel even expected. Is that accurate based on what you've heard?
Not what I've heard, what I've seen in the field. I think that's a correct assessment.
3 times more. So that means that as much as Israel knew the plan and knew all the villages that would be involved in the plan, you guys were surprised by the magnitude of what was getting ready to come your way.
So we know for years that Hezbollah's backbone is Iran. We know that they've been getting ammunition from several countries. I don't know exactly which countries, but several countries.
Well, the weapons we're seeing here: Russia, China, and Iran,
and North Korea. So we found various of ammunitions. It's not only that they had 3 times the amount of ammunition, the variety of ammunitions that they had. To attack in the depth of Israel, the anti-tank missiles, the assault rifles, even their medical plan is such a larger magnitude than Hamas, and it's clear that their plan was on a much larger scale. Now, why didn't they attack on the 7th, on the 8th, on the 9th? I really don't know.
I mean, in some levels, I would say as an evangelical, this is the grace of God, because as bad as it was in the south, it could have been many, many, many times worse because Hezbollah is such a larger force and they had such a larger plan, it could have been just catastrophic.
Without a doubt, and we saw I also myself, I was on the 7th of October, I fought in Kibbutz Kisufim. The intent of Hamas was clear. I'm sure, and from what we see in the field, that the intent was the same and even more. More soldiers were to be killed, more civilians to be kidnapped, in order to have a strong card against Israel, to withdraw from the Galilee or, I don't know, give up all of Israel. Who knows where it could have taken us.
One more question. Do you feel confident, based on all that you've seen, attacking with your colleagues all these Shia villages in Lebanon, right along the Israeli border, where all these weapons were found? Do you feel confident that the threat, the very, very real, dangerous threat of a Hezbollah invasion of the north has now been completely dismantled?
I do feel confident. I feel confident for 2 reasons. The first is the lesson that we learned, us, the Israeli people. We learned a hard lesson that we need to take care of ourselves. We cannot allow anything of the sort to be on our borders. And I believe that lesson will go with us after what we saw in the past year, will go with us years forward. So that's the first reason why I do feel confident that the Israeli army and me, as an officer in the Israeli army, will not allow anything of the sort anymore. I will not be able to protect the border and allow in front of my eyes for something like this to happen. The second reason I feel confident is because the work that we've been doing, and we're still doing, in southern Lebanon, village by village, house by house. We get asked a lot about why there's so many ruins in southern Lebanon. There wasn't any house on those border villages that we went into that we didn't find ammunition. Every house, it was so surprising.
Ammunition, weapons, communications gear.
It was built as a fortress, a real fortress, and we're still finding things. Every house, a window, a bunker, anything.
Mosques.
Mosques. That goes with.
Audience to understand what you found.
That goes without saying. I'm saying we found tunnels. They made these villages a fortress. The villages and the open areas, the forests, a fortress and a base in order to invade Israel. And I think the work that we've been doing and we're still doing sets them back many years. Sets them back and won't allow them anytime soon to come close. And of course, there's a much larger picture that needs to be taken in consideration.
Well, thank you for talking to me, and
Thank you,
thanks for
Joel.
your courage. Appreciate you and your team.
Thank you very much.
You see here, and we've been able to attack some of these pickup trucks in our aerial attacks, but this is a major threat on Israeli communities. So you see there's 24 barrels in this rocket launcher.
Right.
So it can fire 24 rockets simultaneously toward a community, Kiryat Shmona, whatever it may be.
Right.
24 rockets, you can imagine the damage it gives, but you can look down here. There's place for dozens of more rockets. So this thing can fire maybe upwards of 50 at a time, and then it goes back, hides in someone's garage. It could be a civilian garage. You would hear in some of the media afterwards that Israel attacked some civilian house or civilian garage.
Right.
This is the threat. This is how Hezbollah is
Because maybe
operating.
a drones that you guys have
We
saw
spotted
the
it.
thing go into
Exactly.
a garage or a bunker or
We
something.
also have an ability when a rocket is fired to see where it came from.
Okay.
So sometimes we can attack back. You would hear reports of, Israel's attacking just a random house in southern
Right,
Lebanon.
right.
It's not a random house. It's a hub for terror.
Yeah.
And we've seen in many of the houses in southern Lebanon, in some of the villages, every second house was used by Hezbollah for terror against us. Some of them had these type of pickup trucks in the house. And just think one of these can fire maybe
Right.
50 rockets within a few minutes.
Right.
So and this thing can do a few times a day. So
Yeah.
this thing alone is a threat of hundreds of rockets a day on Israel.
Yeah.
So us taking this away is a major capability we were able to take away, and a major gain.
Especially because it's mounted on a truck you suddenly have a mobile
Exactly.
unit that could head 5 miles this way or 5 miles that way or
and violate agreement. So
Yeah.
this truck can be north and it can drive south within a few minutes and fire towards Israeli communities. And our job is to make sure this type of thing is not a mile from our house.
Yeah.
And you can see this has been planned. This is not random makeshift solution. This has been planned.
This is expensive.
It's expensive.
All right, so one more question on this, and it may be obvious, but just so make sure our audience hears it. Why does this truck exist? Why, most of these were destroyed by F-18s and F-35s and others and drones.
Well, a lot of the ammunition we found in Lebanon, we brought back.
Okay.
Some to study. Maybe we might use part of it.
Okay.
And also to show the world. I see reports that say Israel just invaded Lebanon because they want to colonize or whatever it may be, whatever lie it could be. This is what we're facing. Our soldiers, people younger than me, 18, 19-year-olds, risked their life to remove this from being a mile away from their family's house.
Yeah.
And it's important for the world to not forget it, to understand why we operated. And if in the future we will have to operate again in southern Lebanon, and I hope we won't, but if we will, there has to be a testament of what happened, because as you know, the media and the world does not always believe the Israelis if there's not solid proof in their eyes. And even when there's solid proof, sometimes they don't believe us.
It's true. What a terrifying scenario. If Hezbollah had actually invaded Israel on the day before, October 6th, or on the 7th, or the 8th or 9th, until Israel was able to get its forces mobilized and get in position to stop it. But God really protected us from something horrific. And I'm very grateful to the Lord that every single one of these weapons that was bought by Hezbollah or given to Hezbollah by Russia, by China, by Iran, mostly Iran, but Russia and China too. All those weapons were designed to wipe out me, my family, my people, my country of Israel, and God prevented it from happening. I'm grateful for all the soldiers and Air Force pilots and everybody else that fought Hezbollah, fought and won a very impressive victory. And we just pray this victory will hold. And let's continue to pray for Lebanon to get rid, to overthrow Hezbollah, to get rid of Hezbollah, and that this border between Israel and Lebanon will be safe, and the Israelis, 70,000 Israelis, can move back to their homes and feel and be safe.